Just a second, Guy. Apologies for this. Okay, and we are live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Crypto Hour. Today it's Friday, the 15th of May, and let's follow the usual pattern. So we'll have a look first of all at what's happening in the macro environment. And today is a big day because as you probably have heard in the news, kind of the head of the Fed is changing. So there is today is the official handover day. Although they might not be happening, today exactly, but today is the end of the term for the current for Jerome Powell, and there is the new incumbent that's coming in. So it's obviously there's a lot of curiosity about the policies that the Fed and the stance that the Fed will have going forward. So this has quite a generally important effect on markets because it depends on if there is like a dovish attitude, so toward lowering interest rates and making the money cheaper, basically to borrow. That then stimulates the markets in general. If there is the opposite stance of kind of raising interest rates or tightening the monetary policy in other ways, that makes doing business more difficult, and then it's like a restrictive policy. So obviously there has been a lot in the news over the past year, a couple of years really, with Jerome Powell being attacked directly and indirectly by the current administration for not lowering interest rates. So it is expected that the new head of the Fed will be more supportive of what the president wants, and so trying to be more accommodative. But the head of the Fed, once he's elected, is independent. So Jerome Powell cannot tell him. Sorry, Donald Trump can't tell the head of the Fed what to do. So it's not his employee. It cannot be just fired. They can set. They can choose. They can propose the new president of the Fed to the to be approved by the legislators, but once it's in place, it's independent. It cannot be removed. So we'll see. It's a time of interesting wait and see, and just waiting to hear what the new stance is going to be towards monetary policy. So let's share the screen. Let's go and have a look. First of all, at the economic calendar, if I can see on my screen. Okay. So as you can see, there haven't been many economic events, let's say, this week. So there were a little bit of inflation numbers in the US on Tuesday, and as expected, it's a little bit higher than it was last month, and even higher than expectations. So it was 0.2% month on month. Expected to get to 0.3, but it's actually 0.4. So, and as you can see, it jumped on a year by year inflation from 3.3% of the previous month to the actual 3.8%. So the inflation is going back up. Now, that obviously it's not for it's not because of it's not because of people are wanting to spend more money, and kind of there is more buying activity, but simply because the costs have got higher because of the high cost of oil. And oil is in so many things that in so many stages of production and delivery, that affects the final price that you pay for things in the shops. So as you can see already, a jump of 0.5% in a yearly inflation is quite significant. And as you can see here as well, the day after there was like producer price inflation, so are the prices of the prime materials that businesses need to build their products, again has gone up quite considerably. It's almost like doubled the rate of increase from the previous month, from 0.7 to 1.4%. It was actually expected to drop slightly, instead is, as you can see, the prices. So the producers have had quite a jump in the price they have to pay for goods. And obviously that then filters down to to the prices in the shops. Further, like yesterday, we had GDP figures for the UK, higher than expected, but still below the previous months. Still like a 0.3% increase month on month. But although at the moment, as you probably heard in the news, there is a big battle going on in Parliament trying to oust the Prime Minister. So, almost the economic figures take second place to the political uncertainty at the moment. And until that is resolved, that will affect the whole UK economy and in particular the pound, in international markets. And yesterday we also had retail sales kind of coming down as expected for higher costs, coming down compared to the month before. And today, there's nothing particularly of economic significance. There is a manufacturing index, the Empire State Manufacturing Index, that is announced today, but it's of relative importance. So all eyes now will be towards. Let's have a look. I'm just waiting to see if there were particular news, and nothing specific for that at the moment. So that's it for the economic news. We'll go and have a look slightly to next week's expectations. Again, not a particularly busy week, as you can see. So you can see, if you look at the red events are the ones that are of slightly more importance. But the one that I would focus attention on again is the FOMC meeting minutes. So this is the Federal Monetary Committee, and it's held 8 times per year, 3 weeks after they announce interest rates. So this is the last meeting. So it's a record of the last meeting. So the last one of the outgoing head of the Fed is not so much on the there are minutes of things that already happened. So before the new head takes his place. But it still would be interesting to hear how they're managing the transition. Okay, now let's go and have a look at our friend Bitcoin. We're talking about crypto here. So as you can see, we still at the moment we seem to kind of get paused, in this area here where we stood for now a couple of weeks. Okay, from the beginning of May. Okay, and as we were discussing last week, it's as you see, it's quite, if we are on the daily charts here. So this is the blue line here is that I don't normally have moving averages on my charts, but this is at the moment is quite relevant because we are it's a very long-term moving average. It's a 200-day moving average, and we are coming right against it. And sometimes, although these things haven't got particular importance, rather than trying to visually understand if we are inching up or if we're going down. But there are many people that use these for automated types of trades. And so when we come against it, there is always going to be some resistance to crossing that line. And once the line is crossed and we move it on the other side, then it's a much easier journey. Looking at the charts in general, we are pretty much in the same position that we discussed last week. So there's for me the two areas to to really focus on. One is this one, basically between 86 and 91. We can tighten it maybe slightly, about 87 and 91. And from a very kind of a long-term, really a long-term trend, we can see we could, if we go then to longer time frame, you can see the trend is this. Okay, at the moment. So with this sort of trend, it means that the most important point at this stage is this one. Okay, so the 97,000, and this is like if we look at it, if we go and have a look at bigger time frames, you can see a lot of the noise disappears. So this is the weekly chart. Now you can see how clearly as the market came down, did a correction and came down again. So at the moment, there is expectation that at some stage in this area, there is going to be some selling pressure if you follow the trend, which we are in the weekly chart. So the expectation would be that we make a lower high somewhere between where we are now and this top, and then we carry on. And if we have to respect the trend, we would expect to hit a lower low. So the previous low was 60,000, remember. So the important point is, can we break this? And there are some early indications that we need to go back to the daily chart. So that is kind of happening already, because this was the first point of attention was this one. As I told you before, the 79, 80,000, because coming down here, we already established a new low, so we could see this chart like this, okay, and then a new segment, okay. So this is the first point that we already broken. So technically speaking, we are not in a downtrend anymore on the daily chart. So although we are, as you can see, we are fighting between, since we broke this point here, we are fighting between this kind of support, which we have relied on 1, 2, 3 days already. Okay, and this sort of resistance at the top that again we've fought against again once, 2, 3 times already. So really, it's you can see like that. Who's gonna break first? Okay, so then what I would like to see is just like a clear indication the market is going one way or another. At the moment is, we are gently going back up. We got like this big monster on the back of the weekly trend that is very, very well defined, very clearly defined. So it's just to see if we have to go and fight and go and have a go at this thing and then eventually create a new high. We need to see some energy coming back into the market and breaking this point and moving up towards the next obstacle. Okay, at the moment it's, as you can see, the drop down was quite strong, quite violent, and the recovery has been slow. Okay, so at the moment there's nothing really that I'm kind of too excited about yet, although there are encouraging signs. This is my reading of the kind of the Bitcoin move at the moment. If we look from a good point of view in terms of volume, there's sometimes we need to look at other things as well. Like I don't know how many of you are aware of MicroStrategy. and in particular, this is the instruments they are used to basically to finance their purchases. So this is like a preferred shares that pays a regular dividend, which at the moment is about between 11 and 12% a year, paid monthly. So why is this important? Because basically MicroStrategy has changed the way they are financing their Bitcoin purchases, where before they did it with borrowed money, which puts a lot of pressure on the business. Now they're doing with issuing of shares, which are these particular shares. They call it Stretch STRC. And what's the difference? The difference is, so obviously there's a lot of volume that's coming from this. We have a look at volume. Can you see how the volume has steadily gone up throughout from the inception? So this has been going for less than 2 years. But you can see how the volume, the interest has started being steadily growing, especially in 2026. Okay, and the thing is that by using this method of financing their purchases, they are financing the purchase of Bitcoin through stock. So basically the buyers of these shares, obviously are entitled to these special dividends. They are not fixed in stone. So at the moment, if you see the next dividend is going to be 95.8 cents. Okay, multiply that by 12, and it gives you, let's do it here. 0.985 times 12 gives 11.82. Okay, so 11.82%. But there's no definite right of that dividend. That means if the company had some trouble, they could reduce the dividends, or they could stop them altogether. It is a preferred stock, so their dividend will be paid before anybody else's, any other class of stock. But it's not, in any means guaranteed, like it would be on a coupon of a bond if they were to borrow money. So this is excuse me. This is interesting, because they don't come under pressure to basically sell the Bitcoin that they purchase, and the growing volume of these, as you can see here, there are particular spikes in volume, because this is when, on today, the holder of these shares today are the ones that are entitled to receive the dividend in a couple of weeks' time. But it's interesting because they don't. So basically, then there is no then selling pressure attached to the MicroStrategy purchases of Bitcoin, and they are the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world. Okay, so they hold about 6%, I think, of the Bitcoin supply. Okay, and they keep buying, on a regular basis. So it is, and in many ways, they've been one of the forces keeping the price of Bitcoin, from dropping too low, because they kept buying and buying and buying pretty much every single week. Okay, so the way they work is that, in a way, they sell every time the stock goes above 100. So at the moment I don't know why the chart is not showing it, but the stock, it is exactly at $100. So, and this prefers stocks of a face value of $100. Let me see if I can get. I don't know. I don't understand why. there are some issues with this charting, because I know that the price is $100 exactly, but it's not showing me here in the chart. Is looking about $1 less. I don't know if they already discounted the dividend. But I don't know. But anyway, the price at the moment is about $100. So what happens is that every time the stock price goes above $100, they issue new shares with a face value of $100. So they create income that way by selling shares at above their value, in a way. And they use then that extra income to pay the dividends that they pay out every month. And then simply with the volume on new entrants, they use that cash as well to pay partly to buy Bitcoin and partly to pay the dividends. So, they are basically using this as a way of institutional holders. They want to have exposure to high yield products in their treasuries without directly holding Bitcoin. They have a way of them, participating and getting access to a stable yield of very, very, very high levels. As I said before, we just short of 12% at the moment, so it is very attractive. So going back to Bitcoin, let me go to have a look at a few more charts again, like we were looking at last week. So Bitcoin we have seen. Now we can see, turn off the volume now. So we can see here the Bitcoin dominance. So again, about 61% of the crypto market is represented by Bitcoin. Let me go. Okay, this is where we are. So you can see in the previous two cycles, in 2018 and then in 2022, we got down to about 35% in 2018 and about 39% in 2021, 2022. So, and this indicates that at the moment, what is called the altcoin phase hasn't really happened in this cycle. Because you can see here, the previous cycle went from 73 to 39. The one before, well, I mean, that's not really that indicative, but we can say he went from 71 to 35. So like a big moves of interest in other products apart from Bitcoin in the crypto world. Okay, so this is the the first two cycles ago. This is the last cycle. Okay, and this is the current one. So you can see that not much has happened yet in terms of the kind of Bitcoin cycle. This started, the last one started in January 2021, which was about 6 months before the halving event. This time, by January 2025, actually nothing really happened. Bitcoin dominance kept creeping up until June of last year. And at the moment, we are back into what we determine is like a supplied zone. So where it is, the expectations are that from here, we are going to move back and create a new low. Now we'll see if that happens or not. But I expect at least somewhere in this cycle, whatever the price of Bitcoin and whatever the price of the altcoins are, to some interest to move from Bitcoin to the altcoin market, which again has not happened yet. So even having, I would say, normal expectations, let's say in the mid 40s, there would be like a big shift big interest, a big revival of all coins. So even without going to the lows of the last season, if we didn't, maybe we will, maybe we won't, we'll see. But the altcoin season hasn't really materialized yet, and we see that. So that was the Bitcoin. This is the total market cap, which it's very similar to total crypto market cap, but very similar to the Bitcoin chart because it's dominated by Bitcoin. Now the other ones are a little bit more interesting. So this is if we take Bitcoin out of the calculation. So anything else but Bitcoin. And you can see already that this recovery is a lot weaker than this one. Can you see that? Now, if we take Ethereum out of the equation as well, so there are still like big projects like Solana, BNB, and so on, XRP, Cardano, but taking out the two biggest projects in crypto, this is what this chart shows. Again, very weak recovery so far. And then if we take out the top 10, this is the other chart. So you can see there's nothing really too exciting at the moment. So it's still almost like playing around where so with similar levels as we've seen in Bitcoin here. So we have technically broken the downtrend, but there's no excitement in the market yet. So there's like just like a timid trial to break out at the moment. We're still being clearly pushed back around this point. Okay, we haven't even got there to test it. Really, we only have tested this, the lower part of this area. So we haven't even got to midpoint of this zone. So so we'll see. I would like to see again this line broken to give a little bit of a momentum to the recovery. And you can see even today, the majority of these coins they're all in the red. Obviously changes day by day, but it isn't any big push to move to higher planes. Now, institutional demand. Let's have a look at the Bitcoin ETFs mainly. So again, this week is kind of like about $500 million, a bit more than $500 million in the red. So we are 2 green days and two red days. 2 red days. The red days overpower the green days. So far at the moment it's 850 minus 150, so about 700 millions have actually gone out to the market after a very good week last week. Okay, still you can see at the moment over the past 2 or 3 months, the green has more than balanced the red. So there have been some capitals are flowing back into crypto. And again, so there's not much change in the other things that we normally look at. So the realized price at the moment is standing still at 54.2. The Newport. The Newport is gently climbing back up, showing a little bit of interest, moving kind of like away from the fear area and more into like some belief is starting to creep back into the market. So really worrying levels are really all the way up here at the moment. We can't even see the kind of the greed levels are above 75, and those are normally an indication that it's time to take your profits and move out, and stay in and stay in cash for a little while until it's time to buy again. The other thing that we wanted to look at is the liquidation at MAP. Is it? So at the moment, you see the biggest obstacle. So there's quite a lot of resistance around the 83,000, 82.5, 83,000 level for Bitcoin. If we have a look for the monthly ones, please. The monthly ones are a lot more spread out. Kind of there is again there's still a significant level around 83,000, and on the downside, probably the biggest resistance around 78,000. Okay, so those are the two levels where people have placed their stops against, with their trading. So not necessarily put their place, but the point at which many contracts will get liquidated because they ran out of margin if they use and borrowed money. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of bits of news. Let's have a look. Where are we? So, okay, that is probably the where is the there we are. So the CME Group plans the launch of the first market cap weighted crypto index futures. Okay, that would be a similar futures contract to the S&P 500, to the Nasdaq. Okay, but for crypto. And why is it important? Because a lot of people then that don't want to invest in individual shares measure their exposure to the share market by buying index funds, like the one you're talking about here, like the SPY or the QQQ for SPY for the S&P 500, QQQ for the Nasdaq, so that they got exposure to the whole market. Now, those funds are market cap weighted, so the biggest company have a bigger presence inside those funds than the smaller companies. Okay, so they replicate the weight of these companies in the composition of the fund. Now, a similar thing is being launched by CME. This is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is the largest derivative exchange in the US. Okay, so it's a big deal. And potentially we're going to have something that represents the crypto market that is accepted universally. Okay, so as we say here, the stock market has gone up and has gone down because we look at the S&P 500, we'll be able to use, the crypto market has gone up or has gone down because it is represented by this crypto index futures that is going to be introduced very soon on June the 8th. Okay, as long as there is regulatory approval, but there isn't any expectation that is going to be stopped. So as big news again, little bits of again pieces of the puzzle, they are falling together again. So this is not so much important for you and me, although it could be, because you might use this for hedging, for example, your cryptocurrency portfolio, and it is a possibility to do something like this instead of, if there was a market downturn, you could sell a futures contract, in expecting to make money on the way down, instead of selling all your coins. So you'll have the same value of coins inside your portfolio, even if the price of crypto crashes. Okay, so it can be very important, especially for institutions, that use cryptos in a different way from us, in the sense that they don't plan to buy crypto because they want to go and do the little Web3 application. They buy as an investment. So it's important that they have a way of hedging their investments, and this is going to be one of them that's going to be widely used by institutions first. So you can see here, this is the same, talking about, it's an article that talks about exactly the same thing. So this is institutional demand that has pushed to create a product like this. You see the Nasdaq CME. So this is where I'm reading. Okay, this index was designed to serve as a foundation. And introduction of futures linked to the index is a natural extension of our index-based framework support and market development over time. Okay, just translate that in normal words. But it's basically something, again, it's needed to be able to, so to have an index that represents crypto, and these are the products that are going to be in this future. So they're going to be tracking Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, Cardano, Chainlink, and XLM, and Stellar. Okay, so those are the products that are going to be included in the index. And obviously the CME Group already has futures on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other altcoins. But what wasn't available until now is a single contract weighted by market cap, okay, across all these tokens. So this, when I say weighted by market cap, it means that, if Bitcoin represents 60% of the market, the composition of the fund will be approximately 60% Bitcoin. Ethereum represents maybe 20%, so it's going to be 20% Ethereum in this fund, and so on. So they're going to be in the same proportion as their market cap. So it's going to be a mix of, the things that we were seeing before. It's going to be probably close to the total two figures. So something like a mix of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few of the other coins. So something along those lines. Obviously, if we see the Bitcoin market cap, and we add all the other coins in there, that will represent a very high proportion of the crypto total market cap, which at the moment is standing at 2.65 trillion. Okay, but if you deduct total 2 by total, so that the remaining is the value of Bitcoin, which at the moment is about 1.6 trillion, the whole of Bitcoin value. So you add all the others, you will get to more than probably around $2 trillion out of the 2.65 trillion. So it's going to be very representative of the total crypto market cap. Where are we? Now, the other big news is about the Clarity Act, which is again a crypto regulation act that was approved by the Senate Banking Committee. Okay, and again, and it had approval from obviously the Republicans, but also they had the support of two Democrats to pass. And now we will go to the full Senate for approval. If that passes, then it would be going to the president to be signed into law. Now, this was already passed from the House of Representatives last year, in July of last year. So it's taken quite a while, more than a year, almost a year, to get to this point. There are still some negotiation needed, because they need 60 votes out of the 100 members of the Senate, to advance past the debate stage. So if the full Senate approves it, then the bill will go to the president for signature. So it is expected. So the expectations are that this will become law sometimes, during, around July time. And again, it's a very big deal. So because then we have, how the name says, that's what it says on the tin, or at least it's supposed to. They will give us clarity on what is the regulation around crypto. Okay, and this then will pave the way for big multinational companies to get involved, because they know exactly what to expect, instead of having to guess. And this probably the last one, and then Jonathan, if you don't mind, I will refer to you so you can give us so there's an article about layers, talking about layers, which could be like a very important update for Cardano. Jonathan is a lot more knowledgeable about Cardano than I am, so I will defer to him for that. So this is just to show you how some of these things that we talk about, how important they are. So Kraken, one of the major cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, is now kind of, they don't trust, they were using layer zero. They don't trust it anymore, because so there are a lot of crypto protocols here that are reevaluating their cross-chain providers and seeking safer alternatives. So that shows you how difficult it is to operate across different blockchains. And some of these progress. So obviously, this decision was made after, if you remember, we talked about the Kelp DAO hack in April, last month, and it was obviously, Layer Zero is it was involved in that. But also is important because at the moment, the way the blockchains don't really talk to each other. So if we want to use Bitcoins on another blockchain, you need to, what it says, wrap it. So you have this kind of wrap Bitcoins that then can be transferred on other blockchains like Ethereum and so on. But it is not a safe procedure a lot of the time, and some of these wrap tokens end up being stolen, and then it causes huge problems across the whole environment. This is why we always keep going on about Midnight and how important it can be, because you can have like 8 big blockchains, pretty much almost like seamlessly interacting with each other without a lot of the issues they are connected with, with these unsafe procedures. And then Cardano, this is sorry, Jonathan, if you want to give us a few words about this layers upgrade. It's still being discussed because it hasn't been funded yet, but it's it's on the card. Hopefully, it's on the card for this year.
Yeah, well, there's been probably the bulk of the work done on Laos already. It's been being worked on for several years, and it's the scalability upgrade for Cardano that is needed to bring Cardano up to the speed of the fastest chains like Solana. So it would actually give you the stability and security of Cardano's proven track record, but operating at the speed of Solana. And that's really been where Cardano has fallen short in terms of adoption is purely on the you're either uh, the biggest, like Ethereum, or you're the fastest, like Solana. And Cardano's always sat in the middle as just being the most secure. So it's sitting in the wings, waiting for big institutional adoption, really. But actually, now with this upgrade, Laos, we could see parallel block production and transaction speeds between. So we've had theoretical speeds between 10 and 65,000, 65 times faster than currently. So we're really talking about 1,000 TPS being achievable. And certainly they've already done that in test environments. So Pi Lanningham from Sunday Swap, he's been the best communicator on Laos. There's a really good post on him from earlier this year that talks about it. And Sebastian Nagel's working on heading up the team that are building Laos at the moment, and they're IOG, who are the founding team who built Cardano. They're looking for more funding from the Treasury at the moment, so that's why it's in the news. There's a proposal out there asking for effectively the budget to get this done this year. And if that goes through, then yeah, it'd be very, very exciting. There's a lot to think about. I'm a stake pool operator, so the impact of Laos is wider than just speed. It also will impact the expense of running Cardano nodes. There'll be hardware increased requirements and so on and so forth. There'll be a lot more activity on the network, and so the infrastructure needs upgrading to match all that. But you know, I think we need it. I think it would be really, really useful to have that speed increase when it comes to, um, replacing the payment layers of the traditional finance world, which is where Cardano is trying to position itself. So yeah, a good look ahead. Very exciting news. Yeah, it's good. Mm.
Exciting. And if you guys look at the crypto news at all, I mean, you know that a lot of it is around now privacy. So you know we're talking about Midnight being programmable privacy like this. There is lots of talks about Zcash and Monero and because institutions don't want to have all their activity publicly available on a public ledger, which is what most blockchains are. So they want a way of yes, showing that they are doing certain things without giving every single detail about how they're doing it. And this is why this is such a big deal. And and there are big talks because of potentially Midnight could run literally other blockchains, giving them access to increase uh, aspects that are not included in their blockchain, and this is why it's exciting. So there are talks, I know, even the collaboration with Filecoin, for example. So there were talks. I know that Charles Hoskinson was talking about that. How they could literally be a partner of Cardano, and Filecoin could run on Midnight potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Filecoin have been involved in Cardano for a couple of years as well. Just as sort of announced a big relationship at the moment. And that was kind of a personal spat between Charles Hoskinson and one of the and Igon founders.
Yeah.
But that's to do with governance and decision making and competitive advantage between corporates trying to vie for treasury money. But yeah, Midnight brings so much utility to all the chains that are involved. It's a no-brainer, really. The idea that you can have fully decentralized storage, fully decentralized payment rails, and all this can be done without having the friction that's traditionally comes from crypto. The big most exciting thing about Midnight at the moment is they're talking about a Midnight passport, which effectively give you a way to interact with all those blockchains without having to store your remember your seed phrase, without having to go through all the friction of setting up your self-sovereign wallet. You could actually just have a passport. Your phones now have a trusted encryption area within them that is as secure as a ledger or a Trezor device. So if we can actually leverage the traditional commodity hardware like iPhones and Androids to execute your cryptography, then that suddenly means you've lost all that friction for setting up your seed phrase and worrying about, have I got it backed up properly? If I drop my phone, am I going to be able to recover it? All that can go away because we can actually store and execute contracts within phones. And if we've got a private encrypted storage layer like Filecoin, storing all these things, then really we've got all the cake, and we can eat it all rather than having to worry about whether our stamped metal plate with our seed phrase is going to be found by the the next person that wanders past our house, or all these sorts of worries at the moment with crypto. So it's an exciting time. Privacy, security, speed, all these things are ramping up into a kind of, it's a tidal wave of technical innovation that's just going to overrule all the solutions that are out there currently, which is really good. And it's a crypto wins as a whole, not one chain wins, which has kind of been our approach to date, because there's all these blockchains have been vying for attention and money to try and secure their positions, but really this just is, it's mass adoption, that will be plenty to go around for everyone as we grow. So yeah, I'm very excited still. Still,
no, exciting time coming forward. So, anybody has any particular questions or things to share? No, nothing new. Well, we can finish them 5 minutes early. We can finish. Um, kind of like I remind everybody, Jonathan runs a Cardano session pretty much straight after the end of this. So I would encourage you all to participate in that as well. But from me, this is like goodbye for now. So have a great weekend, and I will catch up with you guys next week. Okay, so
Magic.
bye
Thanks,
everyone.
Becca.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.